Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Derek Moore, your worship associate for this morning's service. And it's an honor to be serving with our minister. Of course, he needs no introduction, so I won't introduce him. No. Reverend Ian Riddell. And today doesn't come as a surprise to many people, but today happens to be Easter. And some of the people in this congregation come from different backgrounds, and so Easter to them was a factor, and then all of a sudden when they blend in with the Unitarian Church, they still acknowledge their background, and they can relate to Easter. And drawing an understanding from their core faith values, they are involved in being part of this congregation, but yet at the same time not giving up their basic roots. As the spring hits, all of a sudden, green comes, and with green comes new life. And we offer with thanksgiving the fellowship that we have in this congregation. Easter is a perfect time to celebrate the wonders of creation and the emergence of a new and important life. As with Passover, it too experiences something. So we not only have Christianity, non-secular, but we have the Jewish involvement as well as the acknowledgement of Passover. And Passover offers a new hope as well. And to acknowledge the importance of the Exodus from Egypt by the Israelites, for many in the community here, Easter and Passover season is a time for reflection of what has been, or where we've been, and what's to come, with faith for the future. Here in this sanctuary, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Cohio people. We honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges for better for both Indigenous people and their traditions and their territories. Let this acknowledgement to serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cohio people, whose land and water we benefit from today. In this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientation and gender identities, and of all ages and sizes. People of all economic stratas and professions, civic engagements, and all other physical and mental abilities. People of all races and ancestors and culture. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status is. We welcome all who are willing to learn and grow with us as we acknowledge together and embrace the riches and beauty, diversity of the world, and build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. And because you're here, you're important, and we welcome you as part of this congregation, whether you're a visitor or a member. Yep. No, Denise comes up in a minute. Okay, yeah. Okay. Denise needs no introduction, so I'm not going to introduce her. No, she's a sweetheart. And Denise Jensen Eager, who's a longtime member of this congregation, and I'm pleased to introduce her this morning. Denise?
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Derek. I'm chair of the Social Justice Committee, and two quick announcements. One more week to nominate your favorite nonprofit for a Share the Plate for 23-24. We only have 3 nominations, so get them in. To fill the entire slate, we need 9. So nominate away. Second announcement, on April 18th, Tuesday, April 18th, in front of the Marilyn Monroe statue, we will be a UUC contingent at the Drag for Drag rally. Come join us, share your outrage, share your vision for how we can be together in supporting drag in the Coachella Valley, throughout the nation and throughout the world. And next Sunday, right in the lobby, there will be a protest-making sign, so you can bring it on the following Tuesday. So sign up is in the circle table for both events, and hope to see you there. Bye.
Yes, Denise is a real sweetheart. She was part of the congregation, and she and Chris are still part of this congregation, will always be part of this congregation. So we welcome you both this morning. I missed one of the things on reminding people that here we go. No, the Reverend and I changed pieces of paper here, and so I was a little out of sequence. But anyway, we'd like to remind you that if you're interested in UUCOD, you can go to our website, but also send us an email at admin@uucod.org, or visit our beautiful new website, uucod.org. Now, at this time, Reverend Ian is going to signal with the Tibetan bowl as we listen to our music for centering.
Good morning and welcome. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the joy and delight of serving this congregation as its minister. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome. We're glad you're here. This is a congregation grounded in our commitment to love and an evolving tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving, loving, and just future for all of life. We gather today in the presence of the old story of death defeated by life, of hope and newness triumphant over fear and celebration and separation. We come, some of us hearts heavy with pain and anxiety, spirits flattened by exhaustion, vision darkened by strife, violence, and the cruelty we see in the world around us. We come seeking connection and love in this place of community. May this old Easter story of hope and rebirth lighten our hearts and make us glad in the presence of each other's love. May our spirits be joyful as we worship together in gratitude today. Will you rise, please, in body and spirit, or in spirit as we sing our opening hymn, We Give Thanks. We'll sing it a few times through. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for our gathered here and those far away, for the
Please stand as we recite our unison. Oh, I guess we don't have to stand. Okay, right. Okay, okay. Here we go. And it's written on the board. Okay. May we love the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and practice be its prayer. To dwell in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to serve one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And at this time, I'd like Chris Eager to light our candles, okay? And repeat after me. This candles, solidarity of indigenous people of color. We journey toward the may we, as a community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live our principles of justice, dignity, and equity, will prevail.
So joyful. Time for All Ages today is not a written storybook or anything like that, but a description of experience and some understanding. So I hope you will join in with this in the spirit of whatever age you feel you are in your head. Something happened when I was a kid, not to me, but in the world around. Something happened. There's a whole series of mountains that stand by themselves running north in an arc, a long line from Lassen Peak in Northern California, all the way up 700 miles north and west to Silver Throne Caldera in southwestern British Columbia. That's in Canada, if you didn't know. Now, these are not just any mountains, though. These are volcanoes. I love volcanoes. I've loved volcanoes since I was little. I love volcanoes. And this series of volcanoes is called, the name is the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Something to know. And do you know the names of any of the mountains in the Cascade Volcanic Arc?
Riddell.
Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount St. Helens, anything else? Crater Lake, Mount Baker, Mount Shasta. Excellent. Well, in 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted.
On my birthday.
Happy birthday. Okay. It threw so much ash into the air that it spread across 11 states and 5 Canadian provinces. The side of the mountain collapsed and created searing hot mudslide that destroyed homes and highways for miles and miles around. And the explosion of the mountain sent a shockwave out as well. The slide and the shockwave also destroyed the forests for miles and miles around. I visited there in the late 1990s, and close to the mountain you could still see flattened forest with all the trees pointing in the same direction, outward from the mountain. The trees, of course, weren't the only life affected. Animals and plants and birds and insects and fish and many other creatures, including some people, were killed when the volcano erupted. Now, when everything settled, miles and miles around the hollowed-out mountain looked like the moon. If you'd seen it, you couldn't imagine life ever coming back. But do you know what happened? When everything cooled down and settled down years and years and years, life started to come back. Plants that had been buried under the ash and mud and fallen trees started to poke out little green shoots above the ash and reach for the sun. Water in the streams and lakes started to get cleaner and clearer with human help, but also with time and nature. Slowly, very slowly, life was coming back. New life was growing where there had only been destruction. When I visited in the late 1990s, there were still whole swaths of landscape that still looked like the moon, but around that, life was thriving again. It all looked so different from what had been there before. The terrain was new. There was no forest yet, but life came back. Slowly but surely, life found a way to return after disaster. Remember that. We're going to do something a little different now. The choir has prepared something, but you have a part in what the choir is going to do. So you get to sing with our choir this morning. And there are no words on the screen for this because our words are love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. I'm going to sing it for you, and then you're going to sing it back to me. So can I have the... Love, love, love. All we need is 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 love, love, love. singing, you're just going to start singing and keep singing it until we're done. The choir is going to start with something else, and then we're going to add all of you in with the choir, okay? 2, ready? With that, now for a time of prayer and contemplation. I invite you to be comfortable in your seat. Rest your hands in your laps if you're comfortable. If your eyes are comfortable, open or closed. And just take a deep breath in and let it out. And breathe in and out. As we continue to breathe in the quiet of this space, we see ourselves. We hear our heart, feel our pulse. We know our bodies are here. Sometimes they're aching, sometimes they are strong and fluid. We are here. We bring our minds whirling with information, with news, with trouble in the world around, with cruelty, with repression, and also with stories of hope and possibility. So we bring that here, the anger we feel when our leaders act from cruelty, fear, and domination, when they stoke fear in the hearts of others. We carry our anger and our own fear. And also inside we carry our hope, though they may be small, as small as small shoots pushing up through the ground, but we carry our hope. On this day when we are reminded that hope can win, we breathe together in this space, surrounded by each other and by the love which binds us all together. And we breathe. We breathe hope and love and safety and justice for the world and for ourselves. We breathe together. May all beings know peace. May all beings know justice and an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Will you join now as we sing together our hymns for meditation, Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón, cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Aráyame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. The life of the world moves in circles. Summer becomes fall, becomes winter, becomes spring, and the stories that we human beings live by operate in cycles as well. They come around again and again to remind us of their lessons, to remind us of their possibilities. And this day, this time of the year is the time for the story that lives at the center of the Christian year, the recounting of the trial and death of Jesus and the return of his spirit or his actual self, depending on the story you know, his return to inspire his disciples to spread his teachings of love and hope and kindness and resistance. During his short ministry, Jesus was all about exalting the meek, all about pushing back against the imperial economy of his day, all about consorting with prostitutes and lepers and, oh no, the poor. He daily challenged the authority of the empire and the overly righteous by hanging out with the wrong people and proclaiming that wealth and power were not the way. And so, of course, the empire, as empires do, silenced him. They killed him. We can imagine the disciples of Jesus and his family devastated by his death, shattered by the sudden and violent ending of his ministry, their ministry of love and kindness, of hope in the face of a fascist and dominating empire, hope dashed, their understanding of who they were shattered by his death. And they woke up the next day with no idea of what the world would be, what it could be, without all that they had been working toward. Devastated. Whatever we believe or understand about what was about to happen, we can feel the utter devastation of those hours and days after the crucifixion, the fear, the desolation. It's not hard for me to see something like this devastation in the world around us today. Events and happenings and actions of leaders that cause a break in the way life goes on around us. The fear and separation and pain caused by a global pandemic that dragged on and on. So many of us cut off from friends and loved ones, our day-to-day lives disrupted or utterly upended, sickness and death around us. and the necessity of protecting ourselves from each other, the trauma of that. And it's hard not to think and feel that the trauma of the pandemic and our isolation lowered our guards, kept us from being able to stem the growing tide of hatred and xenophobia and pure cruelty that we see being lived out in so many parts of our nation today. If we are not too exhausted by it, we shudder and wail and weep and rage at the violence of large shootings in schools and other places, and the cruel, seemingly gleeful ignoring of the cost of the lives of our neighbors and children. We cry out, that's not who we are. But how many times do we have to say that before we realize that maybe it's part of who we are? There is a disaster, a revelation, a departure, a diagnosis in our own individual lives, and perhaps a piece of us feels like it dies. It's hard to hear these things, hard to see these, hard to think about these things. We cannot, though, look away from this devastating reality around us. But it's Easter Sunday. The point in the story where things change. And even when we refuse to ignore the pain and insist that everything has changed, we can find a way to wonder about possibility. Ursula Le Guin wrote, "But is it wrong to say the names of hope?" Le Guin was a poet as well as the author of novels and stories, and this line comes in the middle of a long poem of hers called Louet. Le Guin lived so much of her life in Oregon and Northern California. Much of her work, even if it's set on other planets, is grounded in a deep sense of the reality of those places. Louet is the name given by the Klickitat indigenous people for what we call Mount St. Helens. The poem is a long reflection on the destruction of those days, days when the very foundation shook and the sky became black, when, quote, the earth fell on the earth. In the midst of laying out this description, Le Guin stops to ask, but is it wrong to say the names of hope? She continues, the names break through the gray crust, tough, sweet, and seedy, fireweed, pearly, everlasting, vetch, some grass, some bracken fern, brownish orange mushroom the size of a thumbtack down in a hollow of the huge dead trees by the stinking shore of the little sick, dark lake. Imagine. So we come back to the Easter story again, to the moment of the morning 3 days later when the women, note that it was the women, the witness first, find a tomb with the stone rolled away and meet face to face with the one they thought dead, whose death had shattered them. A new possibility that morning. They had come to honor their dead, to perform rituals of the dead, and they found life and possibility. That is the Christian story of this day, life from death, possibility from hopelessness. For Christians today is a reminder and assurance that even in the darkest hours, love will triumph over death and fear and division. And perhaps we too find after a time some small shoots of possibility, some of Le Guin's thumb-high seedlings and small green prayer sticks, some signs of new life pushing up in the midst of devastation. Perhaps we find ourselves nurtured back to our being by time, by honesty, by exhaustion, by faith, by the working of our hearts and minds and hands, nurtured and supported by friends who carry us over, as the choir just sang. Nurtured back by love. You see, the new possibility is possible. But we can't just return. The world around us has irrevocably changed. Forests Our shattered followers, our scattered institutions have shifted focus. The insufficiencies of our social self-understanding have been shown to us. The bonds that we thought held our culture together have been severely tested. We have created new patterns of work, new patterns of being family, new patterns of being church, new patterns of demanding change, new patterns of being because of what we have been through, what we are still living through. We can't just go back to business as usual because business is not as usual. The losses we suffer change us, for the worse sometimes, and sometimes for the better. I don't know about you, but these days I sometimes find myself wondering how to find new ways forward if things are so different from what I'd expected or planned for. I feel discombobulated, a little shaky and uncertain sometimes. I have a practice of daily reading. I take a moment and I read a short passage from a text I've chosen. Sometimes I write it out for myself by hand, and I ponder it, meditate on it, explore how it might speak to my life at this moment. My version of Lectio Divina, which I've talked about you before, the practice of prayerful reading of Scripture. I spent much of the past months reading the Tao Te Ching this way, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in months to come. But lately, I have been reading Marcus Aurelius' Meditation. Marcus was an emperor of Rome and wrote a notebook for himself of how to think and how to be in the world, and for some miraculous reasons it has survived. He didn't write it for other people to read, but we have it. In a passage I read last week, Marcus wrote, "When jarred unavoidably by circumstances," he's speaking to himself, "when jarred unavoidably by circumstances, revert at once to yourself, and don't lose the rhythm more than you can help. You'll have a better grasp of the harmony if you keep going back to it." Now, that harmony that Marcus is talking about is, for him, the logos, the organizing mind of reality. When we are in harmony with it, he thinks things can go well and we have a grounding for our actions in the world. For me, for many of us, I think, that logos is life itself, and the love that grounds and calls and enlivens it. So we are called to return to that love when things are shaky, when things are discombobulated, when we are uncertain. Love that is presence, love that is care, love that is patience, that is protest, that is honesty, that is kindness, that is fierce and gentle, love that is specific and universal, love that sees history clearly, love that sees possibility, love that is angry in the face of absurd cruelty, love that is steadfast, love that is the fire of change, that is the balm for our wounds, love that helps us trust ourselves enough to try new ways of being, new ways of growing the beloved community, love that connects us to each other and calls us forward together. A little while ago, I was at a gathering of Unitarian Universalist clergy, and we were talking about what the future of our tradition was, what the future of our congregations was, with so much changed and changing around us. The refrain of, "we're going to have to do things differently to thrive," was pretty loud. And it was met by somebody saying, "Okay then, but what does that different look like? What are we going to become? What are we going to look like when we do this work?" And we don't know. We can't know. We don't live in that future yet. One of the things we need to do, I think, is to become comfortable with uncertainty. To delay starting until we know for certain what the end will be means we'll never, ever start. We are called to be grounded in our deepest values so that when we get there, when we have created along the way what we have created along the way, it's a way of being and doing that serves the thriving of life and celebrates the connection and beauty of all of life, that shows that what is central to who we are and who we want to be is love. In the face of our current situation, we may feel despair and fear and anger. Those are real and honest reactions to the world. Do not discount them. But is it wrong to say the names of hope? The Christian story of life triumphing over hatred and fear and destruction. The small, green, tenacious life returning to the devastated land around Mount St. Helens. The joy in each other's company when we come together here. The love that we have been singing together all morning. These are the names of hope that I call out today. These are the things that remind me today that new life is possible. My friends, I love you. May it be so. Will you rise in body and spirit and sing with me our closing hymn, number 1068, Rising Green.
At this time, we'll extinguish the flame, but not the flame of unity. Peace we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
As we depart from this place of connection and of hope, of welcoming a new possibility, we remember that old story of possibility in the face of death. We remember the sight of small green shoots pushing up from the devastated earth. And as we return our hearts and our minds and our bodies and our spirits to the very complex and often chaotic world, I invite you to carry the words of the Reverend Wayne Arneson in your hearts. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world.